Hello again, everybody. This is Bryant Dodd with Art Time with Bryant, brought to you by visionsingray.com. And as you can see here, I have my brick wall here, or my actual rock wall, with all the mortar that I've simulated in between. It's looking pretty decent, and what we're going to do today is we're going to not actually finish up this drawing, but we're going to actually put in some trees in the yard area. But we want to show you how to draw a tree. This is only going to be one way to draw a tree, and as you can see, the rock wall is just, fits nicely there. It has a nice mixture of mortar that simulates the mortar there. And what I'm going to actually do today is I'm not going to draw the tree right there at the line, but we're going to go up just a little bit into the yard here. That way it can simulate the trees sitting in the yard instead of right on the wall, and that will give it a nice look to it. And as you see here, I have a plain piece of white paper. And what I'm going to do there with the white paper is I'm going to actually lay it down on the wall where my drawing is. That way, I don't get any oils from my hand or from my skin and mess up anything on my drawing there. And it's always good to just lay your paper down wherever you're going to be resting your hand to finish your drawing up. And then that way you won't mess up your drawing by getting all the oils and things on your paper or on the graphite that you've already laid down. And once you get the oils on the paper, it's kind of hard to hide them. You can't even put more graphite on there to hide those. So that's really important. You want to always make sure you cover your drawing, especially if you're using your hand. You want a prop to draw more elements in your drawings, such as the landscape as we're doing here. Now what we're going to do here, like I said, we're going to take and we're going to draw the tree. We're actually going to draw it up from the wall just a little bit. That way it will simulate that it is sitting in the yard there. And then we're going to draw some branches, and we're going to use some textures for the leaves and finish out the drawing of the tree. So this is a good way to draw a tree. It's not the only way, remind you, to draw a tree. Now before we get started, one thing I want to show you here is, you see I have a kneaded eraser. The kneaded eraser is probably the best type of eraser that you can actually use if you want to erase out some graphite that might be on your paper. What I done when I finished my drawing the last time, I had actually taken and I have folded my book up, and some of the graphite kind of smeared a little bit on the paper there. And the kneaded eraser there, you see I have a little bit of green on it, a little bit of graphite that you saw there. All you got to do is just take that kneaded eraser and just fold it up. And once you fold it up, then you can kind of get a clean area that you can use, and you can just kind of take a swipe just like this and just swipe it across your paper. And it's softer than a regular eraser. I did try a regular eraser, about a 2-inch eraser that had some graphite on it, and it kind of smeared a little graphite on my paper. So that's when I broke out my kneaded eraser and just taking, like I'm doing there, just some little horizontal swipes, and it will erase out any graphite that you might have floated on your paper there, and clean your paper up just a little bit, especially if you're going to fold your books up like I did. And so what I'm doing now is I'm going to just take my paper and lay it down on my wall, because I'm going to be resting my hand right there where the wall is, and I don't want to get any oils on the skin when I begin to draw this tree. So what we're going to do is, we're not going to start right here on the wall, but we're going to go up just a little bit, and we're going to start simulating the actual trunk of the tree is what I'm going to do here. And you can draw the trunk however you want to do it. This is going to be a small tree. It's not going to be a large tree, so I'm just going to take and go up a couple of different strokes and try to make a little narrow trunk, if you will, of the tree. And then I'm going to have the right side of the tree, I'm going to have it forking to the right a little bit, and then the middle branches going straight up just like that. And then I'm going to come back down and make it real narrow. I'm going to try to make it as narrow as I can because it's going to be a small tree and you don't want real thick branches, because the further up you go, like when I go up to the right here, you know, you want to go a little bit narrower as you get more to the top of your page there, because as the branches go up they do get narrower. And then eventually you just want to make, you know, as narrow of a line as you can using this technique I'm using. And then what I do here is I take my pencil and then I'll just kind of make a squiggly line to simulate those thinner branches. And keep in mind here that the trees, you know, the branches of the trees, they don't all grow out evenly, so you don't have to be really perfect. Just take your pencil and just go out and flick your wrist just a little bit and kind of make some little squiggly lines to simulate the branches. And if you'll notice here what I'm doing, the branches aren't all of them are not even. Branches just don't grow even all the time. Sometimes they may, but you know, most of the time they don't grow even. So if you'll notice, I'm offsetting a lot of the branches, and I'm just taking and just flicking my wrist just a little bit. And right here I'm going to make the depth of the center of the tree just a little bit taller, and then I'm going to just use those little lines like I did on the right side and just simulate some branches. Now you have to be careful. If you turn your wrist too quick, you might make a too squiggly of a line, but that's okay if you do. You know, you can just practice your trees and practice your branches, but you want to just put out enough branches as you see fit and till you're satisfied basically with the branches, because later on, after you get all your branches defined, what we're going to do then is we're going to go and we're going to put the leaves in. And we're going to do that with simulating just some textures. We're going to simulate leaves. But as you notice, I just keep drawing and keep making those lines. And not all of them are going straight across. Some of them are coming off of each other that are going straight across. But if you'll notice, branches are not always just going one way. Most of the time, you know, they'll go straight across like I'm drawing them here. I'll have a little branch to fork out from the main branch that I've drawn, and then after that you may want to, you know, take and put in some other type of branches that actually go straight down or curve down the paper just like that, just a little bit, because you know you're going to have a tree that if you're going to draw, especially from a reference photo, you're going to have a tree that may have a broken branch, or it may just be growing straight down, you know, toward the ground. And they're not always perfect, and you don't always have to get perfect like you would if you were drawing a realistic portrait. When you're drawing a realistic portrait, of course, you want to draw all the proportions right, but with a tree just like this, you don't have to be perfect at all. And it's always good to watch different videos of different people. You can always learn from other people. And you know, to be quite honest with you, I've learned a lot from watching videos and watching other people. And I've bought programs, you know, even though I'm an artist and I have been drawing for some time, I've bought other programs to learn something new. So it didn't ever hurt to learn anything new. You know, if you've never, maybe you have, if you're on YouTube, you've seen Tyler's Art Shack. I've learned a lot from watching Tyler. As a matter of fact, he's taught me a lot on making the texture of my leaves on a tree. But you can really learn a lot from watching other people. Now, what you want to do here, in every video that you see, you're probably going to see that most people want to simulate the light source coming from the left. And that's what I'm actually going to do here in this video. So you're going to want the left side of the branches to be lighter and the right side to be a little darker, you know, to just simulate a little bit of light that's coming in from the left. And if you'll notice, I'm just going to lightly draw the right side and make it a little bit darker, and I'm not going to completely fill in the whole branch itself. But I want to leave a little bit of white space on the left side of it to simulate that light coming in. And as you draw trees, you'll get better at it. Just draw, and that's all. The biggest advice I can give you is just draw and keep drawing. And look at other trees. Go out in the yard and take pictures of trees, and then bring them in and use them as a reference photo, and just start, trying to draw the shape of those trees. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm actually getting ready to start the textures of the leaves. And you don't want to draw the leaves individually, because you could do it and make it look pretty good, but you really want to just draw some textures with some shading techniques. You just want to basically start out light when you're drawing the branches, or actually the leaves, excuse me. You want to start out light, and we'll go in later on and add some darker values, to the leaves to give it a little bit more contrast. But it's always good to start out drawing your branches first. That's how I like to do it. That way, once I have my branches drawn out, just like I'm doing now, I can just start using those textures with my graphite, and I can simulate a bunch of leaves, all at once. And if you'll notice, you can see a lot of the branches that's showing through where my leaves are. That's because I'm starting out light. You always want to start out light, and then when I go back through here in a few minutes, I'm going to add some darker values, and then I'm going to cover up actually a lot of the branches by adding the darker values. But once you start doing that, you just want to shade all the branches that you've drawn, just like I'm doing here. And I'm fixing to speed this video up here in just a second for the sake of time. And this is basically the idea of how you want to draw the texture, for your leaves. Just a lot of graphite texture is all it is. And draw it any shape you want to, really, because leaves are not perfect. They grow all kind of crazy ways, and when it starts to rain and bad weather comes in, it beats down on the trees, and they're not all just in any type of chronological order, of course. But they just go every which way. They grow all sorts of ways. So I always like to take the outside of my branches first, and then make my textures for my leaves. And then once I get all of the outside of my leaves done, then I'll work my way into the middle of the branches. And once I get the middle of my branches done, and I see that there's going to be a lot of white space, you're going to see some white space, so don't worry about your white space. You can actually go in and draw some more leaves, bunches of leaves actually, and you can fill in a lot of space. What's a good idea for you to do is the white space that you see that you will have left over after you've used up all your branches, making all the leaves on the branches that you've drawn out. You can just create some more textures for leaves, and then later on you can go in and define some extra branches in those. And so what I'm actually doing now is I'm actually taking a different type of graphite pencil, a little darker shade of pencil here, and it's a 2B pencil, and I actually drawn out, if I didn't tell you, the initial tree with a HB pencil, but I'm actually taking a 2B pencil now, and I'm using a lot more pressure, but I'm simulating a lot of the darker values. And if you'll notice, I'm just starting at the branches and just kind of going all over the place with it. You don't want to get too crazy with it, but you just want to take and add some darker values to it to give it more of a realistic look of a tree. And this isn't the only way, mind you, to draw a tree, but this is the technique that I like to use when I draw just a small tree that is in the yard. And I may approach it a little bit different when I'm drawing a larger tree. And this is what I was talking about by going behind after you get all your darker values in, is just adding some branches. And notice I'm not adding full branches coming from the middle of the trunk, but I'm just adding a few branches here and there that you can see in some of the other branches that you kind of get the idea that the top of the branch I'm drawing in here that you can see, you can kind of get an idea that's going to attach to one of the main branches. But like in a realistic tree, when you're outside looking at a tree, you don't always see the branches because you have a lot of leaves that's covering up most of your branches. And that's the simulation that we want to get here. We want someone that is looking at this to know that it is sending a message that it is a tree. And I've drawn my trunk a little narrow, but I'm going to go ahead and shade it just a little thicker. And you can always do that. It's always best to start out small, and then you can always add more to it. Where the trouble comes in is if you try to do things too dark on the beginning, or draw your trunks too wide on the beginning, then you're going to have to do some erasing if it's not the way you want it, and then that might mess up your paper a little bit by doing a lot of erasing if you do too much erasing. And then I'm just going to kind of shade half of the trunk. I'm not going to shade all of it, just half of it, just to give a little bit of darker values to it. And some of the branches, I'm going to leave some of the other branches light. And what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to add some grass, just to give it a little bit of a, more of a depth to it, and to let you know that this tree is sitting in a lawn or a yard, just whatever you usually call it. And I'm just giving a little bit of textures here for some grass and simulating a little bit of the ground here. But this is a good way to draw a small tree, and I'll have some more videos later on that will show you how to draw a larger tree, and I'll do some different techniques with the larger trees than I do with these type of trees. I probably have, I don't know, I probably have 3 or 4 different techniques, if not more, that I use when I draw trees. It just depends on what type of tree I want to draw, how large the tree is, or how small the tree is. But what I'm doing now is just kind of giving the trunk a little more of a darker value, and I'm going to leave some of it a little bit lighter than the others. And what you can actually do is you can actually take and shade some more dark graphite into this, and you can actually cover up some more of the branches by doing that, because you don't want to show the whole trunk, you don't want to show all the branches, to get a realistic perception of the trees that you're drawing. Like I said before, if you go out in your yard and look at trees, you don't see the whole branch, you don't see all the limbs and things like that all the time, because you've got such a full tree that a lot of the leaves are covering up most of your branches. It's covering up most of the time the middle of the trunk of the tree. But it's really however you perceive it and want to draw it. But you just want to try to look at some reference photos of real life trees and get as close to it as you can to real life, and that's what it's all about. But I'll show you some more videos later on how to draw some of the bigger trees and even some of the smaller trees. And what I'm going to do with this drawing here is I'm probably going to add maybe a few more trees. I may add a large tree into here. I'm not really quite sure yet how I'm going to go with it. But by the time I'm finished with this, we're actually not going to probably have much room for the sky. May have a little bit of sky there, may draw a cloud or two. We'll just see how it goes when we get there. But I am going to draw just some more trees, and then I'm going to draw some grass. And I'll leave the grass for another video to show you how to use some more different types of texture to draw your grass and just simulate some grass. There's many ways that you can actually go about doing this, but you don't have to get too fancy with it. All you got to do is just convey the message to your audience that this is what you're doing. But I hope you enjoyed this video. This is all for now, and if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do.